AI minds, quantum leaps. Cut the noise, dive deep. Truth unlocked. Dr. Mike on the mic. Tech Unfiltered is on the clock. Now it's time for the show.
The World Bank has released a report with a finding that changes the usual conversation about artificial intelligence and jobs. According to the report, jobs in high-income countries are more than 3 times as likely to face automation risk from generative artificial intelligence as jobs in low and middle-income countries. This is the World Development Report 2026 called The Promise of Artificial Intelligence. Reuters and the Financial Times both covered its release. The bank describes it as its first comprehensive assessment of what artificial intelligence means for developing economies. Here are the main figures. The report estimates that 14.2% of existing jobs in high-income economies are at risk of automation. The figure for low and middle-income economies is 4.5%. On the other side, 16.2% of jobs in developing economies could receive meaningful productivity gains from artificial intelligence. That is close to the 18.7% estimated for high-income economies. Those are exposure estimates, not forecasts of layoffs. They measure how much a job includes tasks a system could plausibly perform or assist with. What happens in practice will depend on adoption, business decisions, worker bargaining power, infrastructure, regulation, and whether the tool works in local conditions. Exposure tells us where change is possible. It does not tell us exactly what employers or governments will do. Why is the measured automation risk lower in developing economies? The immediate reason is the mix of work. Employment in many developing countries is weighted more heavily toward manual and physical tasks. Today's generative systems are strongest at language-based cognitive work, such as drafting documents, summarizing information, and organizing data. They are much less capable of doing physical work in the real world. That difference applies now. It does not mean workers are immune from disruption. Knowledge-intensive services can still be affected. Trade patterns and wages can change, and future systems may reach a wider range of tasks. Developing economies simply have a different starting point. The report's most practical idea is what it calls small artificial intelligence. The argument is not that every country should build a frontier model or a giant data center. It is that countries can use affordable systems that already exist and adapt them to local languages, local data, local institutions, and the devices people actually use. That might mean a focused service delivered by text message, a voice call, or a basic phone. A reliable tool that helps a farmer interpret a weather forecast can be more valuable locally than a frontier model with impressive benchmark scores. The World Bank organizes its recommendation into 3 steps: adopt, adapt, and advance. First, adopt existing tools where they solve a verified problem. Second, adapt them to the country's language, data, culture, institutions, and infrastructure. Third, advance toward building frontier systems and the infrastructure beneath them only when the capital, chips, data centers, data, and specialized talent make that investment reasonable. The report says the third step is the hardest and most expensive, and it is not realistic in the near term for most developing countries. A country does not need a trillion-dollar model to improve a crop forecast or extend basic decision support to a rural clinic. The technology can also spread quickly. The report says middle-income countries accounted for half of ChatGPT's global traffic within 6 months of its launch. It compares that with about 80 years for steam power to reach lower-income countries, 40 years for electricity, and 20 years for the internet. That comparison is about the speed of access. It does not prove that economic benefits will spread just as quickly or just as evenly. A service can reach a country long before most people receive useful or affordable value from it. The report identifies several areas where artificial intelligence could help. These include medical screening and assistance for clinicians where specialists are scarce, weather forecasts and crop advice for farmers, support for teachers preparing lessons, and help with tax collection, social programs, disaster response, healthcare, education, and judicial services. These are opportunities identified by the report, not guaranteed outcomes. The report also says evidence remains limited for selecting, purchasing, evaluating, and scaling systems that interact directly with the public. It does not claim that a chatbot should replace a doctor, teacher, judge, or farm advisor. The useful roles are assistance, triage, wider access, and better information with a qualified person still accountable. The central limitation is infrastructure. The bank says these systems work best where electricity and internet connections are reliable, schools are effective, institutions are capable, local data are available, and businesses can finance and test new ideas. Many developing economies are missing several of those foundations. In sub-Saharan Africa, the press release says nearly 1/3 of rural schools still lack reliable electricity, and more than 2/3 lack dependable internet. The bank connects this problem to its Mission 300 effort, which aims to provide energy access to 300 million people in the region by 2030. The implication is straightforward. An artificial intelligence tutor cannot help a school that cannot reliably power or connect the device. The same infrastructure gaps that reduce immediate automation exposure can also prevent people from receiving the benefits. There is another concern: concentration. A small number of companies in a few economies control the most advanced models, chips, and data centers. That can make adoption cheaper because countries can customize existing systems instead of building everything themselves. It can also create dependency, privacy risks, supply risks, and unequal bargaining power. A government that ties an essential public service to one provider may gain speed today while losing choices later. The report also warns that artificial intelligence could widen inequality, concentrate market power, weaken trust, raise energy costs, disrupt trade, assist malicious actors, spread propaganda, enable surveillance, and create safety, privacy, and cybersecurity harms. Its chapter summaries say that concentrated market power can allow owners of capital to receive more of the gains than workers. That is a reported risk, not a prediction about every project. Still, it raises an important question. When productivity improves, does the benefit appear as higher wages, lower prices, better public services, or mainly higher profits? Technology does not answer that question by itself. Institutions and public choices do. There are several practical things to watch. Are governments measuring real outcomes rather than counting pilot programs? Do the tools work in local languages and on common devices? Who controls the data? And can a public agency change providers? Can independent experts test accuracy, bias, privacy, safety, and cybersecurity? Are workers in exposed service industries receiving meaningful help with transitions? And are electricity, internet access, schools, and public institutions being funded alongside artificial intelligence projects? My careful inference is that the most important artificial intelligence competition for many countries is not about owning the largest model. It is about turning affordable, general technology into reliable local services without giving away privacy, choice, accountability, or bargaining power. The World Bank's finding is hopeful, but it is not a guarantee. Developing economies may face less immediate job automation and nearly comparable potential for worker assistance. Yet the conditions that provide some protection today can also block tomorrow's gains. The right question is not whether a country has a national chatbot or a giant data center. It is whether a farmer, nurse, teacher, or small business receives reliable help in the right language on an available device and whether the benefits are shared. I'm Dr. Mike. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.